Be a man. Earn what you need for your own family. Then your family respects you. They are proud to say, "That's my father." She is proud to say, "That's my husband." Father means you're taking care of your children. Husband means you're taking care of your wife. You are accepting the responsibilities of manhood. Malcolm X.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Mentality. It's your boy Gambo, and I'm here with Simmons. Today, we're talking about black masculinity in the dating world. What are some of the characteristics that people expect black men to have when they date them? Stay tuned when we chop it up in this interesting episode. All right, welcome back to the show, guys. I'm here with Drew. What's going on, bro? How you feeling?
I'm tired, man. I'm dead tired.
I feel that. All right, man. So today we talking about black masculinity and its effects in the dating world. And before we even touch on that topic, I just want to talk about masculinity in itself. What is masculinity to you, and how do you view that?
All right, well, according to Google, trust your Google, masculinity is qualities or attributes regarded as characteristics of men. In layman term, it means the things that make you a man besides your genitals.
Okay.
So this whole concept came to my mind, at least just around yesterday afternoon. I was thinking, 'cause you know, every now and again you're sitting around and you think about all the little experiences you've had in your life. And I've been told many a time that I'm not black enough. I've been told that by black people, been told about white people, talking about brown people, la-di-da-di, everybody told me at some point I'm either not black enough or I act white. And that led me down the rabbit hole of this dissertation that I sent you. It was a publication by Joy L. Hightower from the University of California, Berkeley. It's their dissertation titled "Dissertation Submitted in Partial Satisfaction of the Requirements for a Degree of Doctor in Philosophy and Sociology in the Graduate Division of University of California, Berkeley. Black middle-class men and intimate relationships." So I read on this. He was able to break down categories of black middle-class men into 3 categories. I don't know the proper names for them, but I'm going to give you the layman definition. You have black people who grew up in the middle class and were exposed to non-black or predominantly white environments early on. Black men who grew up middle class and were exposed to predominantly white environments later in life, meaning through college or adulthood once they enter the workplace. Or black men. Sorry, one more time?
I said that would probably be someone like me.
Yeah. And black men who grew up in quote unquote the ghetto. Like, we just going to give terms to up and coming developing areas, whatever you want to call it, grew up in the ghetto and didn't have
that is me. I take that back. That's me.
Grew up in the ghetto and didn't have any introduction to white people or got into predominantly white environments upon entering college or the workforce.
Yes.
So those are the 3 categories. We gotta get these guys names or something. I don't know how we gonna keep it from getting confusing. But we got the early white middle class, the late white middle class, and the late white ghetto.
Right. But so how do you think these categories like tie into like the effect of black masculinity on dating though? Do you feel like people in certain subcategories have different experiences with women in the dating world based on how they perceived or achieved their black masculinity?
So that's the thing. So we know what masculinity is attributes that make you a man. When we bring race into it, when we talk about black masculinity, it's characteristics that make you a black man. And in the dating world, you're not seen as, by most people, it's just we're generalizing right now. By most people, you're not seen as a man, you're seen as a black man. And if you don't exhibit black man characteristics, then you're not seen as masculine.
I guess my question would be, what do you think people typically consider to be black man attributes or characteristics?
So that's, unfortunately enough, it's whatever they're exposed to when they see black men. And the majority of people, non-white, who don't grow up around black men, they get their image of black men from television, whether that's on in entertainment or whether that's on sports or whether that's in the news.
Hip hop.
So it can be something as simple as you have to be brooding, tall, athletic. You have to be a good dancer. You have to have some form of artistic talent, or you're a thug, you're a gangbanger. You sling dope. You steal. You do what you got to do to get by. Essentially,
Right.
none of those things encompass me in any way, shape, or form. Which is why I really started getting into this article.
Right.
I'm like, wait, what the fuck am I then?
Well, so does the article say that you have to adhere to these characteristics in order to be considered a black masculine man, or is it trumping against that?
So that's the thing. It goes on to say that if you don't exhibit these categories, then to a lot of people, even though the men in these that they interview, 6-figure incomes, they work hard, they raise their families and stuff, they're on their first and only marriage, they're good husbands, good parents, and all that. Throughout their dating, throughout their time dating, they were seen as not black enough, like the first two categories, based on when you had your introduction to a predominantly white area. And when you're seen as not black enough, then you your partner misses out on what they expect to be getting into when they start to have sex with you, or when they date you, or when they consider marrying you. It goes on to say how the third category, people who grew up in the ghetto and didn't have any white exposure until they got into adulthood, are seen as too black. And that's the funny enough, that's the one that is fetishized the most by non-black women.
Non-black women. You
By
don't think it's
non-black
fetishized
women,
by
they
black women at
fetishize
all?
it. They will fuck you, but they will not take you home to meet the dad, because it has the thrill of kind of like how that Nat Turner movie, how like he remade it. They have that
Right.
image of the original version of that movie of what a black man is: big dude,
That
angry,
aggressive, yeah.
aggressive as hell.
Yeah.
And that's, if you speak to any black dude for more than like 5 minutes, you realize that like, oh, these are like totally individual people with their own individual ideals.
Right.
But
And I think sometimes that's one of the interesting things, right? Because I think a lot of times people consider black people to be a monolith. That
exactly,
we all have the same values, exact same values, the same ideas, same morals, same thought process. And it's like, yeah, we all have a common struggle, we're tied to a common struggle, but we do have individual lives and experiences as well. So tying that into black masculinity, especially in the dating scene, do you think there's a difference between the way black women and non-black women, treat men or perceive men in terms of their masculinity? And do you think men also react to that in order to be able to try to court? Because we know men are always going to try to court, right?
all
That's what
day.
we do. We going to go after some ass. That's what we do.
So the thing that ties in with how black women feel about it, and it's when they say black women, they talking about successful black women. You're talking about black middle class men. This is black middle class women, 6-figure jobs. They got their own money, their own house, pay their own bills, educated. The educated black woman, she wants a black man who identifies somewhat with aspects of the ghetto, as in he knows his way around the hood. He can maneuver. He's not totally blind to everyday black struggles that we all do end up facing at some point in time.
Right.
But she also wants to be able to take him to work functions and wants him to be educated and have his degrees and stuff. She wants the best of both worlds, essentially.
Right.
And oftentimes you find that that's a very small portion of your dating pool. Because think about it, for an educated black woman who's currently single, she's in her mid-20s to early 30s,
Right.
looking for long-term committed relationship, marriage potential. For you to be able to find exactly what you're looking for, and not just with black masculinity, but with any type of dude you're looking after, once you get past a certain age, is the pool becomes smaller and smaller. And that's where some of their dissatisfaction lies, is like, where's all the good black men? But like, they
You're
was
saying
there. It's
people are
just like,
narrowing they're narrowing their criteria too low, too small. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, the scope is going to be very small for what it is that you're looking for. You want a really educated hood dude, which like we're getting more and more every day. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
at this
But it's
current
also
moment in
like I feel
time,
like I've
it's
heard a joke where somebody saying it's like women basically want like they want that thug who's smart but funny, who might kill somebody but like cats. You know what I mean? All the crazy
we want,
extremes.
want everything, want fucking everything
Yeah,
under the
which
sun.
is like obviously like impossible for the most part, you know. But I guess like here's another thing though. I feel like because it's 2020, right? And if we were to compare this mentality to like, the 90s where we grew up, like do you think that there's like a shift in, what people consider to be black masculinity? Like do you think people are
Oh
like, all
yeah,
right, boom, before, it's like you had to be a gangbanger, you had to be, like hood conscious, street conscious, whatever you want to call it, but also, be brooding and tough. Do you think some of that is changing?
oh yeah, and I really, you gotta give credit where credit is due. Kanye West, man, everybody was gang banging, count with the polos in the backpack, and just changed the game
Right,
from
right,
there. And you got dudes like Drake, they sing, they in touch with their emotions and stuff. It's definitely
right,
a different environment, different culture than it was 20 years ago for sure.
right. But so
But
here's the thing, though, right? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
but in terms of the dating realm, we're people are still looking for, because like I still meet people to this day. I'm 25 years old. I'm still people's first black friend. It's
Well,
they
yeah,
still have an image of who black men are and what
right.
they have to give to the table. And if you don't meet that mold, they have disappointment essentially.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we've had a conversation, like, off camera, like a while ago about a certain group of friends. I think we had a conversation about one of my roommates in the past. I don't know if you remember, about how being black was not black enough, about how we weren't black enough or something like that. And that's not something
Yeah,
I
yeah,
typically get. But he said that being black was basically just wearing Timbs and being
yeah.
street and not being in college. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And he really believed that. It's somebody who liked me, someone who was a good friend of mine. So it's just funny that, seeing what they think. And I think you said something that really stood out to me. You said, man, it's like if we do something, we're either black, like we're either too black or we're not black enough. It's like you really can't win because they have this crazy standard for us that we can never really attain or we over attain. I think you said something like that, and that really stood out to me a while ago.
Exactly. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
And it's when it gets back to the dating, when you're dating with with non-black women.
Mm,
So you got black women, women of color, and you got white women. When dealing with white women specifically,
mm,
I've noticed, and this is universal, not like white women are racist or anything, but the majority
mm,
of people date and marry, procreate within their race. Like the
mm.
vast majority of people do that. But
Right.
for the percentage of people who date outside their race,
Mm,
I'll even put women of color in this category as well. When
mm.
they want to date a black man, they have a certain image of what a black man is. So then,
Or chestnut. It's like, no, I'm
which
just
is
playing.
the pretty much a typical hood dude essentially. Not like super
Okay.
hood to the point where it's like, damn, like this dude's slinging dope like right in front of me on our date and shit. But like
But I think
the
women
way
want
they
like some
carry
kind of,
themselves.
yeah, women want some kind of protection though, right? It's like they want somebody who they feel like they could be comfortable and secure around.
Absolutely.
So I mean, maybe that's the element of the hood thing we keep like misconstruing because I feel like back in the day people were like, if you're hood, and even still to this day, some people probably feel like that. If you're hood, you have this level of security that you might be able to provide me. Granted, it's counterintuitive because we know that like that exposure to a high level of danger and all that, but people consider that to be like, oh, if I'm with him, ain't nobody gonna mess with me because, what I mean, he's gonna handle the business.
Exactly.
So it might be that security aspect that people consider, when they look at people who are hood and whatnot. You know what I mean?
And I totally understand that. I get it. You got hood friends. It's like I'm hanging out with them, so I know it'll be good. Even though,
Right.
ironically enough, you open yourself up to more dangers if they
Right.
in that type of lifestyle. But that is just one aspect of the overall black male picture that they have in their heads
Mm.
of what I'm expecting to get when I date this black dude. Like, If I'm dating
Right.
this black dude, he probably plays 2K. Probably got sneakers. He's probably got Jordans and shit. He listens to one specific type of music. Listens to hip hop. Listens to R&B.
Right.
Might like some oldies and stuff. Cool. And when you have a black man that doesn't subscribe to any of that stuff, not just because he's fighting what he thinks black men should be and like wants to do his own. It's just like he literally just like, I'm gonna use myself for example. Like I don't wear
Mm-hmm.
Timbs, I wear Chelsea boots. I wear
Right.
tight pants. I listen to rock and roll.
Right.
I don't like sports. I'm not good at sports either.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also 200 pounds, fucking what, 11% body fat. I've taken fighting classes. I can at least get them off us. We can skedaddle and
Right.
all that. You know, we gonna survive and all that. I know how to use a weapon. I'm gonna have me an arsenal and I'm gonna open carry as soon as I get back to the States. But it's still not seen as masculine because those are key characteristics tied into our black masculinity. Say
What
if
do
I
you
was
mean
a
by that?
say if I was a white guy and did exactly the same exact stuff, you know what I'm
That's more
saying? I'm
masculine.
educated. I'm about to get my degree. I have a good paying job. I have 401k. I listen to the things I listen to. I dress the way I dress. I behave the way I behave. I have typical characteristics of, I mean, I'm not even going to say white masculinity. I'm going to say American masculinity or
Mm-hmm.
capitalist masculinity, you know? Like
Here's
I'm
what I'll
I'm
say about
secure in
that
my
though.
finances. I'm secure in my
Mm-hmm.
safety.
Mm-hmm.
But since I am black, that closes a lot of doors because a lot of people don't want to date black men, which is fine. It's your preference. But the ones that specifically do, they have that narrow scope of what they want to get into when they do date a black man. Since I don't fit that, it's it just lowers the overall pool of people that I have to choose from.
Mm-hmm. But here's what I have to say about that though. I feel like I agree on a lot of a lot of those key issues that you mentioned. Like personally, I've honestly never had like that issue of people being like, "All right, boom, I can't date you because I won't talk to you because you're not black enough." I mean, like we boys, we go way back. So I mean, I know what you're talking about, but I personally never had that. But here's another thing because I know some of the things that you mentioned. When I think of you, I don't think of a guy who's not maybe because I know you well and we boys, but I'm not like yo, he's not masculine. I'm not like yo, he's soft. But I think a lot of those are also like do like a lot of the things that issues that you mentioned are being rivaled or being diminished with today's thought process because I feel like a lot of people today would actually say like I would think at least a lot of women would say that okay, a guy who's super violent, who's does a lot, they actually would attribute that to being toxically masculine, which would they call what toxic masculinity. So I feel like a lot of women are also starting to see that like, all right, boom, I need a guy with finances, I need a guy who can take care of me, boom, 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 like you know what I mean, like that's an aspect that like people are starting to care about more and more. So I felt like maybe it might have been the environment we were around when we were younger because I would say when we were younger we were not in as affluent surroundings, right? We were around people who were from the mud like we was, and growing up I feel like that mentality would kind of like shape how they view us. So like like if you're in an environment where you feel like the toughest dude or the dude who gets the most girls is Daquan from the block, who Daquan is out here carrying a pistol, you know what I mean? He like out here pistol whipping motherfuckers and shit. You know what I mean? And that's going to be what you think is masculine once you start to grow up. And you start to see, okay, like there is a Barack Obama. There are people who are, like considered to be like masculine and they're not violent. You know what I mean? They just have like a certain way that they carry themselves and something about them that makes them attractive in a masculine sense that women still want them. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like maybe it might have been in our environment. So I don't know if you still face some of these issues today where you feel like, all right, boom, like some women don't want to talk to me because I'm not the idea of what a black man's supposed to be or a masculine black man's supposed to be.
So my current environment is southern Germany, which is ironic how I can't feel black enough in southern Germany when you really get down to
What you mean by that?
it. Like god damn, dude. But but you know what I'm saying? Like I'm in southern Germany, so like I've only dated like one or two, or even dealt with like a handful of European women who English is not their first or second language.
Okay.
So I've noticed the difference between European women and African women at that, and American women. So I've talked to a lot of African women when I was in Ethiopia.
Okay.
They have again, they have most of their exposure to African American men is through
Media.
entertainment and what they see
Right.
on the news and stuff. But overall, their expectations of me are, I say even more so for the African women, their expectations of me for my level of blackness was, ironically enough, like non-existent.
Really? What you mean by that?
They did not. There was never a you act white or you act too black, you act hood or anything like that. It was just more genuinely like, I want to get to know you like as you, as this
Right.
person sitting in front of me right now.
Can
It
I
didn't.
interject real quick?
Yeah, yeah,
'Cause I felt like in Africa, right? Like I felt like when you think about it, when you have a continent with everybody being black, that's not going to be an issue.
yeah.
Think
When you
about
really
it,
think
because
about it, it's
everybody
like,
the same. You know, there's probably going to be a colorist issue of light skin versus dark skin, and we could
yeah,
touch into that more. But I feel like there's not really going to be an issue of like what kind of masculine you are, because for the most part, everybody black.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
and their view of masculinity is very traditional. Like, man is the head of the household. Man is a provider. He protects the family, takes care of the family. Wife takes care of the husband. It's very, very old school. I'm about to go back to Africa for real, for real. But
We all do. Trust me, I
is
got you.
is very traditional with European and American women, but more so American women. Their view, and I think it might also be an age thing, because like I'm in a dating pool where I'm dating people who grew up in the '90s. Like, my
Right.
dating pool is from my age to 35, essentially. I'm trying to
Right.
date these younger chicks, but like, I think that's where some of the issue lies, because we are in a different generation of like, we can date people from a younger generation now, and they have a more, I guess, accepting view of what masculinity is, kind of getting away from the toxic masculinity tropes. But
I agree.
within that, they're also immature as all hell, and they're annoying as fuck to be around. So it's kind of why I'm steering clear for the time being, let them get a little years on them. And as I deal with older women, as I deal with women my age, they still kind of have that view of, this is what old school, like, this is what I grew up around, how black dudes are, and you fit that or you don't. And
Yeah.
I noticed it more so here because most of the German women here date German men, marry German men.
Okay.
For y'all to even
Black or
date,
non-black? Are we talking traditionally German white
I'm
men
talking
or
about
just?
German blood, like you're Caucasian, you
All right.
date German Caucasians.
Okay.
For you to meander into the American pool is one thing in and of itself, and
Right.
it's
Let alone a
another
black
thing.
American.
You get with the black dudes now. It's like
Right. Right.
you are specifically looking for a certain type the majority of the time.
Huh. I guess I never thought about it that way. That's funny that like like because I'm here, like I'm in the U.S., so it's like the people that I'm going to meet are going to probably be most likely assimilated to American culture, and so like you meet a bunch of different people basically that like some might have slightly different ideas of what it is to be a masculine black man, but I guess in Germany it's probably more like you said, if they're looking for you, they're looking for an exact thing that they
They
have in
want
their
the dude
mind.
they see on TV.
Right, do they see on TV? They want that hip hop nigga. Like,
Exactly.
interesting. So, like, have you found out like it could be like you found out like some women are, like they get disappointed when they don't feel like you have some of these attributes, and how do you handle that? Like,
Yes, and I noticed it a decent amount. It's unfortunate that like, 'cause I meet a lot of like just gorgeous, like fucking drop dead gorgeous black women out here.
really,
They
in
they are
Germany,
just, I mean, they in the service and shit, but like they
gotcha.
are, they're beautiful. They just, every day I'd be like, you're the most beautiful chick in the world. The next day it's like, damn, now this chick is bad as hell. Like, it's crazy like how much beauty is out here in the world, and I would love to be able to go chat up with a black chick, talk to a black chick for sure. I still do. I still be shooting my shot, but oftentimes after the interaction, after the date and stuff, like especially if I get to talk to you a little bit long term, it's like, damn, dude, you just aren't how I imagine you to be, and you would be in any way, shape, or form.
From looking at you from first glance, right? Versus them talking to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And it's getting less to that now because I dress very differently now. People tell me I'm dressed bougie. I like to be bougie. I like my sweaters. You know what I'm saying? That's just my fashion sense. But
Right.
I've noticed with the non-black women especially that the ones that do deal with me, they're usually more mature, not just in age but in experiences.
Mm-hmm.
They've been
Mm-hmm.
around. They've met more people. They've lived in different parts of the country, lived in different parts of the world, and they didn't have that. They knew from the jump not all black people act the same exact way.
Right. But so here's another thing, though, right? All right, boom. We've established that, like, you could have black masculinity in multiple different categories, right? And I would say I definitely align myself with the third. Someone who's been from the ghetto and like you kind of don't have exposure to white people in a certain way, so that kind of shapes your masculinity, right? I know definitely like a lot of my. I don't even know when I can say I formed my masculinity. I guess I always believe like experience is never ending, so I guess I'm always evolving. I'm always changing. But to bridge a gap to like how how like non-black women and like black women interact with men based on their perception of black masculinity, especially when you're trying to date. What do you call it? Do you think like which side do you think is more negative? Like, do you think the way black women treat us in terms of like what they not treat us? I mean, our black women treat us great. I mean, I'm talking about like in terms of the way they perceive us versus the way white women perceive or non-black women perceive us. Which do you think is more dangerous for black masculinity?
Oh damn, that's a good ass question, man. I would have to say it's the way the non-black women, their expectation is
Why and
is the
how so?
most dangerous because they're still going off that old mindset of classic black masculinity. And that's what their
So
expectation
let me
is.
get this straight again. So you're saying non-black women look for black masculinity to be this hyper aggressive state, right? Or it is,
Not even so
or am I
much
getting that right?
hyper aggressive, but again, all those old stereotypes, all those old tropes of there's an element of naughtiness almost, and that's what getting back to is like they kind of
Right,
fetishize it a little bit
right.
because black women, the non-black women, are more likely to sleep with black men who fit that mold, but they're not going to bring them home at all. The ones that they bring home are the ones that can turn that off essentially.
So what about black women, and how do you think black women perceive our black masculinity?
So what the non-black women fetishize black women, that's what I think their end goal is for a black dude is someone who's able to have that element of classic black masculinity, but you don't live in the streets. You've had your exposure to the ghetto and you've learned how to maneuver it and you've overcome that. And there's a sense of relatableness that black women
I
have
agree.
with black men. And that's one of the reasons why I love black women is because as I sit and talk to Spanish women, white women, German women, we can vibe all day, we can chill, we be cool, like the same stuff, but there's a bit of that connection that we miss that I've only gotten thus far with black women.
I mean, I absolutely agree. I feel like you're always gonna your shared experience was most likely gonna be with somebody who's been through similar experiences as you, and you're always gonna have a deeper connection with somebody like that. But I think it's interesting that you say that. So you're basically saying that black women basically want that element of that shared experience that y'all both had, but you don't necessarily live that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's
Huh.
funny enough because like that's what I would look for in a black woman, like verbatim. Like I want one that
Right.
has been exposed to the hood, who knows how to maneuver that shit. One that's not
Struggle.
naive to
Right.
what's out in the world, but who's able to overcome that. When
But
we out,
so
no, go
it
ahead.
sounds to me like, fortunately, like some of your mishaps were like, what women in general in the dating scene has been like, if especially with black women, is that they feel like you're not quote unquote black enough, though, right?
Yes.
So how do you like? Isn't that kind of like weird? Like, how do you resonate with that? Like, how do you even think about that? Like,
So I've lost too many nights of sleep over the years of like not being black enough or being too black. And at this point, especially now, because once again, you said it yourself, it's 2020.
Right.
I'm living 100% authentic to myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just looking for whatever female fucks with that. Where she
Right.
doesn't, where I don't have to worry about am I being too black for this environment that she's brought me in, or am I being black enough to hang out with her friends? I don't like to have to chameleon myself to 50 million different groups and environments and stuff. I know you have to do an element of that
Mm-hmm.
in your day to day life. You know, when you go to work, you talk a certain way. Besides when you're talking to your boys and all that, but
Right. Your white voice.
yeah, exactly. My wife was, oh, good morning, Bob. How you doing? But I don't
Right.
want to have to. I don't want that to be my life experience of like I can't just be my authentic self.
Right.
Cause I work with
Um.
people who are damn smarter than me, but just based on their verbiage and stuff, you would slide it past them. But
What
they
do you mean slide it past them?
you would if you put both of us up against each other in like a knowledge based task or whatever. Just
Yeah.
because they talk a certain way, like a lot of people from the South get this. They think a Southern accent means you're stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
That's true.
I mean a lot of motherfuckers from the South that some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life,
Right.
but they maintain their accents and stuff.
Huh. Yeah, that's definitely true, man. I guess like I wonder if people also like pick their mates or find love based on what they feel like is gonna make whoever they feel like is gonna make them feel more masculine. Like for example, if we're saying that somebody who is say with like a non-black woman feels like black women, these women are for the fetishes of a certain characteristics of being black. If they feel like they can play that right and they feel like they could probably get more love from that group, versus or someone who feels like okay, well, like I can pretend or maybe I have more connection with someone who thinks that I have these experiences in the hood that can resonate with me. I wonder if people like kind of pick their mates based on whatever they feel like gets them the most ass, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense. Like, you know what I mean?
Nah,
I
that totally makes
wonder
sense.
if
That totally
people,
makes
you know what I mean?
sense.
I wonder if people are like, leaning more towards one side and not because it is a fact that I feel like a lot of more and more black men are also starting to date non-black women, which is like kind of wild. But you're seeing more and more of that. So I wonder if that kind of plays into it.
Yeah, black men statistically date outside their race more than any other demographic,
Yep. Yep.
and that was a different article that I was reading. It was like, is that on purpose? Is it because we don't love black women, or like what's the deal with that? It's a lot of black men just are fetishized based off of the
But I think
idea
a
of
lot
what
of black
black
men
men
also
are.
fetishize a lot of different things. So I know, for example, like a lot of black men fetishize a lot of white women. And that's like a thing that could probably be tied all the way back down to slavery, right? Because it used to be considered like the prize. And some black men would just probably consider like a white girl to be, oh shit, like I got something that back, especially back in the day, it was more like this is something that's like almost like a taboo, like you just didn't do, right?
Yeah,
So they probably prize that and make that like a trophy. Whereas like some black women are like left on the back burner where they're not really, you know, they're not fetishized as much as a white woman would be.
I can totally see that because
Yeah.
for sure, like I'm sure everyone's at least heard of or seen black dudes that exclusively date white women. Don't even date women of
Oh, I know a
color or
couple.
women or non-women of color, whatever. But they
Right.
exclusively date white women. They exclusively date blondes or
Right.
redheads, and they see that as once you lock her down, you've officially
You made it.
you no longer work on the plantation. You own the plantation type shit.
Right.
Like you
And there's a
become the
couple
master
things
of
with
your
that,
own
right?
world.
So I guess my question would be: do you think more, like, do you think black men are typically dating outside of their race because of what they feel like their masculinity is being perceived as? Basically, or men basically dating because these white women are fetishizing them, or are they, or is it the opposite of that?
I
Are they,
think it's
is
just
it that white women are fetishizing black men, or is it that black men are fetishizing white women?
I think it's I think black men are fetishized more because it's ironically enough it's just easier to get ass if you if you a black dude in the right spot, which I know is like kind of contradicting everything I just
Interesting.
said in this entire podcast thus far. But in shape black dude who can kind of play both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of white women who are like fucking. They say they're scared because like they ain't ready for it. Because there's another thing. It's like, oh, black men have the biggest dicks, and
Right.
it's like they walk around their whole lives thinking that if I fuck a black dude, it's gonna have a huge dick, and
Right.
I gotta try that at least once. Gotta see what it's like. Gotta see what it's like.
Right.
And I think that it's just because that's such a widely known thing amongst the planet and stuff. Black dude's just walking around, find himself in the right area. If he seems safe enough to approach, but dangerous enough to still give that thrill, then just lay pipe left and right. It's not that he hates black women. It's just that the pool of women has opened up more for him.
Yeah. There's a couple things with that though. Like I mean, like the pool has opened up, but like you said, majority of people typically do date within their race. It is typically like black men who typically date outside of their race.
Well, not just date, marry within their race, and that's a big
It's a good point.
that's a big asterisk on it. Is everyone marries within their race? Black men also they do date out their race more, but also when this study was talking about it, they said black men are less likely to claim that I'm dating you. I'll fuck you, but we
Oh, for
ain't
sure.
dating. And that's where the distinction I'm trying to make is now. It's easier to fuck, but it's hard to date as a black man.
Damn. So you said it's easier to fuck, but harder to date as a black man.
Yeah. I'm sitting here, everyone just wants dick, but I'm trying to give love and stuff, but they don't want to take it to
Yo,
that
I
level.
I can understand that. You know, especially like I mean, I'm not out the country, but I can see how for sure you can definitely be more fetishized if you're in a foreign country, right? Because here in the U.S., we still have like a good majority of black people, especially we have our own communities, and you know, like there's places where you go, you see a bunch of black people, so it's like it's more normalized, right? There's still like you can go to that all white school that could be different, but for the most part, it's a little more normalized here than as opposed to like if you were to go to like Germany, right? Like you said, you're probably one of the few black people there, so people are gonna look at you differently, and they're definitely gonna fetishize you. So I could definitely see that. So from your perspective, you're saying that white women are the ones who are fetishizing black men more, which in turn is causing black men to what, marry outside their race, or am I not getting that correctly?
It's where since we're fetishizing more, we just tend to fuck more outside of our race.
Hmm.
And marriage, we're definitely more likely to marry outside of our race, but it's just because we're also exposed to, again, we're exposed to a whole larger dating pool. It's not that we don't want to date and marry black women. It's just that
Right.
I found someone that I meshed with a crap ton. She just happens to be Japanese or happens to be German, happens to be
Right.
Mexican or something like that. It's just by happenstance, and that's what happens the broader your dating pool becomes. And it's in total inverse with black women because black women are universally seen as the least desirable
Which is
amongst,
fucking crazy to me,
which
but
yeah, no, it's
yeah.
bugged out to think, but like majority of men of different races, they don't really fuck with black women unless they have the experiences to be mature and just see this woman for being a woman, or they fetishize her.
Which is like, I mean, I don't want to stray too far off the topic of black masculinity, but that is another thing I definitely want to touch on. Is I feel like it's crazy to me that like a lot of white people or like a lot of people who are non-black men or even black men for that fucking fact. Like I feel like they don't, black women aren't as desirable because of what? Like I don't understand is it their features, like what their perception is.
It's because of
But
the same exact reason we think black men act a certain way. We think black women act a certain way. We think they
right,
loud. We think they ratchet. We think their hair isn't
it's like
theirs, and
black
they
men get fetishized for all that same stuff, but I feel like black women get put down for that same stuff, right?
exactly
It's kind
a
of
hundred
weird how that
percent.
happens, but it's also like we like it seems like we like black women with like non-black features, kind
Light
of.
skin, green eyes,
Yeah,
quiet, and yet we like white women with black woman features.
I've heard that too, which is weird, right? Like
Because
I
fat
remember I
asses
was
wasn't a thing 20 years ago on anyone but
2007
black
it started
women.
popping. I always say that. I remember
And
white
all of
girls
a
started getting
sudden, all
ass in
these volleyball
2007. It
players
was
coming
all of a
out.
sudden weird and started catching on. It was a weird time. It was a weird, scary time, man.
Exactly.
Um, But yeah, I mean, like I could definitely see that. In terms of like dating black, I feel like this will be a whole different conversation because I mean, I'm someone who has always, like I've never really dated, but I've always talked to black women, and I found myself in a relationship with someone who was light skinned, who was mixed, and that was bugged out for me because I never thought, that would be my situation. But I wonder how many people are in my position who are like, well, I didn't expect myself to be in this situation, or it's like, I wonder versus that, or how many people are like, all right, boom, this is what I always really wanted. Like, like this is what I'm gonna go for because I feel like this is what I don't know. Like we kind of mentioned, this is like my prize, or this might be my trophy, whatever have you. I wonder how many people are like in my position, or how many people are like, fuck it, I just don't really fuck with black women.
I think more people are in that latter position because
Mm-hmm.
again, most people want to marry within their race, so they'll look for potential dating partners within their race,
Mm-hmm.
and will be less likely to date someone outside that. It got to be a real like charming motherfucker to be like, all right, I know like I'm about all this stuff here. I'm pro my race, but something about you, I can't shake that feeling. So I gotta see what's what.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that as time progresses, sure, everyone will be like, you know what, we're just yes, we identify with our race is cool, but I'm not gonna stronghold myself to just one race of person, one type of person. But for the meantime, currently where we're at now, I say it's a 75-25 split where the majority is still kind of in that classic mentality of this is what I want my black dude to be. This is what I expect a black dude to be.
Right. But I guess on the flip side, I'm also saying like what men want their women to be, right? So like a lot of black men might want, and I've also heard people say this, and this goes for both black men and black women. Typically, I mean, I experience more time with black men, but people want their kids to look a certain way. Kids, they
Also
might
true.
want their kids to be light skinned. They really want their kids to have that. Oh my God, he got quote unquote, which pisses me the fuck off, good hair, or they have this type of skin color, they have this and that and the third. So like I feel like sometimes people probably pick their mates or spouses based on, what they want their offspring to be a representation of, which is kind of like not you, and that's kind of like fucked up.
Yeah, it's because I think with the black community especially, it's that's our own fuck up because we have our colorism going on
Mm-hmm.
hardcore where it's always been for the longest time. Dark skin was like back in the '90s. Dark skin was the shit. Like you got Morris Chestnut, you got fucking Wesley Snipes type shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like dark skin was the shit, and then it flipped on us, and then light skin became the wave.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking if you high yellow, you got the blonde hair and shit. You got the green eyes. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you're way more desirable than fucking if you brown skin, if you dark skin.
Right.
And we grow up with that idea of what beauty is supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
especially being black. You don't want your kids to have to suffer through the same shit that you suffered through. You want your kids to be what you grew up to perceive beauty to be. And if in
Right.
your time of growing up, dark skin was the wave, you want to marry with want to mate with a dark skinned person. If in
Right.
your time growing up, light skin was the wave, you want to make sure that your kids come out light skin.
But see, here's the issue I take with that thought process, right? Because people who I've heard people make some arguments about that, about guys who would date like, and usually I hear this from white people who say, oh, I won't want my kid to date, a black guy or whatever because I feel like they'll have a harder time in society. But I feel like I take issue with that because I feel like that's ignorant. Like, wouldn't you want? And maybe that's just my thought process. Wouldn't you want like a better place for everybody? Like, say for example, if you're a black guy and you say, "Oh, I don't want to date another like." Say if I was dark skin, right? And I'm dark skin. I don't want to date a dark skin woman because I don't want my kids to be dark skin because they're gonna go through hard tributes and trials and tribulations or whatever. Like that to me is kind of crazy because I'm like, wouldn't you want your beauty, your standard of beauty, to be recognized and to be like one of the standards of beauty? Like, you know what I mean? I feel like as opposed to you being like, oh, I don't even want it to be an issue.
Absolutely, of course,
That's
but
weird to me.
unfortunately, like I would love for fucking it to rain money and shit. I could like grow $100 bills in my yard, but that's not how the way the world is. Unfortunately, like, the world is gonna
Mm-hmm.
judge an interracial couple. You are gonna be judged when you date a white woman, and a black woman's gonna be judged when she dates a white man, and vice versa. I say even more judgment comes on the black woman.
do you think that's fair, and
No, not at all.
do you think that's attributed to like how masculine someone might be? Do you think lighter skinned women or white women are dating black men because they feel like these are the more masculine people to date? And do you think, how do you think black women will see that?
This shit ain't fair at all. It's not fucking fair in any way, shape, or form. It's just terrible. But
I will
unfortunately,
insert this really quickly. I feel like there are some people who definitely tend to date outside their race for their own self hatred. I would definitely say that, and I've definitely seen people like that.
yeah, I used to be like that. I'd be the first one to tell you.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah.
Nigga, I never knew that about you.
When I was in middle school, this was my first introduction to a totally white environment. I didn't meet my 1st white person until I was in 6th grade. And then from there, for probably the whole time I was in there, I only wanted to date non-black women.
Really?
I only knew.
Is that because you feel like that's the only thing you had around you?
That's the only thing I had around me, number one. And number two is I learned to appreciate the qualities of non-black women. And again, that's middle school. That's your fucking, your prime puberty. Your hormones start turning and stuff. This is what you're developing up around. Like, that sets the tone for you for the longest time.
I never knew that about you, man. That's crazy.
Ironically enough, the first black woman I ever dealt with, I ended up marrying her, so.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
No, it is. I mean, I had one. She was biracial.
I mean, you dealt with a couple black women.
She was biracial.
Since I know, yeah.
But the first woman I dealt with that was my color, that was black, like, she's not gonna pass for this or that. Like, a million miles away, she's black. That was my first real time dating a black woman, and I just fell in love. Like, I identified with her so well.
So I guess two questions. Like, one, what made you like make that switch? Like, first you felt like, oh, I want to like kind of prove myself to these white women, and two, I felt like, how did she perceive your masculinity? Did she feel like, oh, you were a masculine black guy because of the traits and qualities that you had, or she just felt like you were a black guy and I just like him because I don't know, he's still a man, even though he has these characteristics that are not typically or majoritarily considered to be considered to be like a black masculine trait.
And that's for my ex-wife.
Yeah.
All right. What was the first question one more time? I'm gonna put a pin in that one.
The first question is, how did you make that switch, that transition to like first wanting to prove yourself to like white woman, like you said, like in middle school and shit like that?
Right? Oh, that was easy because again, every time I try to talk to one, well, first off, when I try to talk to one, they were like, "Oh, my dad doesn't want me to date you and shit like that." I got that a lot. I got that a hell of a lot.
I've gotten that once too. I think I told you that story a while ago. This was in high school. Not a date, but just to go to the dance or something. Just she didn't want to be seen. The hip hop didn't want to basically see me with her.
Exactly.
I thought that was crazy.
I've had that a few times. It is what it is. But after a while, it got to where we're sitting down, we're talking and stuff, and then they would hit me with the urinorio type shit. And
that's disrespectful.
And that really like who the fuck are you? You Sally Mae Sue, bitch. Like, who? How dare you try and question my blackness right now? And like, what quantifies my blackness? And they would tell me what they think being black is, and it's always the same bullshit over and over. Like, you're bad at basketball, and you don't listen to rap music, and you wear skinny jeans, and fucking, well, everyone was wearing skinny jeans in 2007 and stuff, but
yeah, except me though. I was still in my hood face.
Yeah, you in the third category. I'm in the first category, bro. Right?
Yeah.
First category, you all rocking skinny jeans. But yeah, I just didn't fit their mold of black, and then that's a real big turnoff. Like, I don't care how horny of a teenager you are. It's like, that shit is like you coming at me real sideways right now with that. I don't like that at all.
You think some guys like that though? Like, for someone who might not be like you, right? Because I know your family, right? Like, you raised in a black family, like real black values, tradition, all of that.
Yeah.
What if somebody who's not raised like that, and somebody who's like, they just want to be down with the white community, they just want to be accepted completely, not just by women, they just want to be accepted by like the white community in general. I feel like to someone like that, an Oreo might actually be a compliment for them.
Yeah, no, that's a real life thing right there. I think I met one or two when I was in college who pretty much embodied that, and it was it's sad to see because it's like it's the same thing about I want to marry a white woman so I have light skinned kids.
Yeah,
It's like it's a form of self hatred almost,
for sure.
and you have a warped view of how black people are based off of whatever experiences you might have had. Which okay, that's unfortunate enough, but like until you realize that's not the case, that's just you walking around blind,
Right.
and that's a oof. I don't know how you can get down with that.
Yeah, but can you touch on the second question real quick? Like, basically, like, so how? I think the first question I asked you is like, how did you make that transition? The second is like, your ex. Do you feel like she treated you? She viewed your masculinity based on who you were, or does she like? How does she deal with your view on masculinity? Does she have like a traditional black woman masculinity? How black women view masculinity, like we earlier defined, or
So
do you think
I
she just kind of saw you for who you were?
so we sat down and we like spread this topic out on like what was it about me that made you like
Attracted to me.
attracted to me,
Yeah.
and she said that she typically doesn't go for dudes who would fall in the third category, dudes who grew up in the hood, maintain themselves in the hood, and then ended up finding themselves in white environments in adulthood. She
Which is funny because we said that's typically what black women, majority of black women would go for, right?
yeah,
Okay.
she was like, I like Carltons essentially. Like her words exactly. I like Carltons. And
Interesting.
she was like, you just number one, the way I carried myself, like she said the first thing I noticed about you was your arms. So I took my top off when we was in the classroom. I had a pump going on from the gym, so you know what I'm saying. I'll be out veiny, bro. You know what I'm saying.
Looking brolic and
You know what I'm
shit.
saying? Look around, you know, little Sean. But she says just your arms was just huge, and your posture and the way you carried yourself was just it was really sexy, and
That
like
was masculine to her. Okay.
that's very masculine. And she was like, from
Right.
then I was plotting on you.
Interesting. So for her, it was never like, it was never like the traditional sense of like what will make a black woman attracted to a black man.
Yeah,
Is
those things
more
were a turn off to her.
interesting.
And for
Interesting.
me, what attracted me to her was the fact that she, I guess, kind of fit that typical black female mold. Like she was very strong willed, very
Right.
strong willed,
Right.
independent as hell. She just had her own everything. At the time, she just didn't need anything from anybody.
Right.
Like I didn't feel like she depended on me for anything, and she was just very independent. But she wanted me there just for my company, and I just like that about her. I'm like, damn, you just a soldier over here. You stable.
Right.
You doing you fucking independent black queen out here. That's sexy as hell. I like that.
It's funny too because I know there's like I forget what the theory is, but basically it's an effect where basically a lot of guys would typically gravitate towards women who remind them of their mothers,
She
and
has
not
the
mention
same
mothers. So I
birthday
mean,
as
like,
my mom, and people say we
yeah, I
look
mean,
just alike, though. Like
yeah,
that's some Freudian shit. That's for another
yeah,
episode, bro.
yeah, exactly, exactly,
but she reminded me a lot of my mom, though. She did, and this
right.
I just like
But so
just
here's the thing too, when it comes to like black masculine and all that, right? Do you think that like not just women, but do you think men will have, or do you think a lot of men, especially I gotta make this clear, black men, do you think we perpetuate the advancement of the negative stereotypes of being black? 'Cause I remember, like, I just want to give some context. Like, this one episode of Fresh Prince, since we talking about
I was
Carlton,
gonna
right?
bring that joint
You
up.
remember
Yep.
that? You remember that episode
Yes, I do.
when him and Will was trying to get in that Greek life joint,
Hmm.
and Will was like, Will's the quintessential black guy in the show, right? He's like a regular black guy. He does all the things that makes you cool. But Carlton, he's on some Ivy League, spelling bee prep type
Acapella
shit.
group type dude.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I remember he said a quote. He said, I might be paraphrasing. I can't remember exactly. He said, "Being black is who I am, not what I'm trying to be." And that resonated with me throughout my whole life. I just remember that. So like, do you feel like a lot of black men? Do you think we kind of put each other down, and be like, "Oh, he white. Oh man, he acting white." Because I used to say that. I'm not gonna lie. It's sad, but like when I was younger, I said stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, you young and stuff. You don't have all the experience of life that you have now to formulate a mature response and all that. But the older I get, for sure, the older I get in general, more people are. I hear that less and less as the days go on. I hear it every now and
Right.
again, I'm like, dude, like how the hell do you know this song? Like, like the one episode Chappelle
It's some
show.
ignorant ass shit.
Like, how you know this, man? I grew up in the suburbs, man. It's just over
John
over
Mish.
time, yeah. Over time, people get used to people with different experiences, and people develop their own different experiences.
Right.
Like 2 years ago, you could never tell me I'd have gone camping and stuff, but I love camping. I went for the first time.
Yo,
It's
the older
so
I get,
fun.
I be doing all these activities, and I'm like, yo, this shit don't make no sense. I'm from the hood. I should not, you know what I mean? Like, I break out of my own mind, but like, if you were to tell me, like, 10 years ago, I'd be doing this stuff, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
Yo, man, you
This
going
some whack shit.
whitewater rafting? Like,
Yeah,
no, the fuck I'm not.
ain't no man doing this, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? This is not like what black people do. Like,
You
but
just-
it's funny because I feel like I have experienced like a split. Like I know when I was growing up, I grew up in the hood. So like I feel like for me, it's like if you did not have these quintessential ideas of what it is to be a masculine black guy, we would automatically just call you out and judge you. Like, oh, you white. Oh, why you acting this? Why you listening to this? Or why it would be judged instantly. But I remember when I came to high school, and I know this like when I started meeting like you guys around shop, is when I had a huge like life changing moment, right? So I remember like my freshman year, my sophomore year, is when I started like kind of switch more. Like when we started like getting in groups of shop, especially by the time I came around the junior year, boy, I was like finding parts of myself that I didn't even know like I would enjoy, and it was like that's when I started like developing like an internal change. And I started to notice that people would be like, yo, what happened? Like, like you acting white. And I would get these phrases that I never got before or phrases that I would say to other people. And I'm like, what's going on? But it's just funny how like that switch kind of happened. And I kind of started to see it. It's like you're on one side of the coin, but you start to see the coin flip.
and
It's just funny.
It's crazy. I remember that exactly because when I got into the
Word.
shop, it was what, 8 of us.
Yeah, it was only
It's 5 black people,
Group,
3 white dudes, and 1 Indian
Yeah.
man.
right,
And
right.
The black people, everybody
Shout out
stayed
Sharab,
on
man.
that side. Word for real. Well, what's a Robin? I miss him. But all the black people hung out with each other on one side of the class, and then everyone else formed a group on the other side of the class. And
Right.
then they kept forcing us to
Man.
interweave because, again, we with each other for 3 more years at this point.
Yeah.
And over time, you realize that, like, damn, like, not only are we different, we're not different at all, but, like, we have a lot of similarities as well.
Yep. Yep.
And sure, you might pick up my mannerisms, I might pick up your mannerisms, but, like, we're
Yep.
still integrally the same people.
Same,
We're
yep.
the same
Sure.
as we were. We just
It's
exposed
the
to new
Breakfast
stuff.
Club effect, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the Breakfast Club effect. Like you get to see that, like, all right, boom, we got differences, but it's a good amount of similarities too. It's a lot of shared experiences that we have, or even things that we never learned about each other that we find enjoyable. And that was wild to me. Like, just for me to see, like, I know you put me on the Beatles. Like, I didn't fuck with the Beatles. Like, the who? Like, I love the Beatles. Like, I remember I used to clown you for that. Like, you remember that? Like,
Oh, yeah.
we used to we
I
used
got
to
real
get
hot that
arguments
one
about
time in class. I was like, you ain't gonna talk,
we
you
used
ain't
to
talking
get
shit
in
about
arguments
Beatles,
over
man.
that. Like, you know what I'm saying? But you catch me now, and I'm like I'm bumping John Lennon. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy how stuff like that happens. And so that's why I say when it goes back to masculinity, I feel like sometimes it's the environment that we're in. And, like you also mentioned the age group that we're in. A lot of times when we're in those environments, like when we're more in the hood environment, you're going to be perceived that you want to adapt to a certain ideology or methodology of living by that street code. Like, I'll give you an example, like a Meek Mill versus a Drake, right? When they were doing that battle thing, it's like Meek had to be in a certain lane because in order for him to be considered a masculine black guy, he has to abide and adhere by like certain street codes. Whereas Drake does not. Drake has already established himself as like, I'ma sing, I'ma talk about love, I'ma do all this, that, and the third. And he might get crucified for it in like a majority of the black community, but like across the world, he might not necessarily be seen as that. Like, you know what I mean? He's already established that. So like there's certain freedoms that you get, and I feel like once you transition from certain communities or a certain age group, your idea of what it is to be masculine or, in this case, being black and masculine starts to shift. And that's where I feel like we start to see some of the deviations between how people think about black masculinity.
Yo, that example was like, that's probably the most spot on example I've heard thus far was the Drake versus Meek Mill beef. Because
Word.
when it first came out, like, Meek Mill was like typical black masculinity. You know what I'm saying?
Word.
He's tatted up. He's been in the hood. He raps about being in the
Yelling.
hood.
Right.
He hardcore. He thugged out. And
Right.
then you got Jimmy from Degrassi out here. Like you really like you gonna step to him? Really?
Word. Like,
And crazy enough, he bodied him back to back. It's like I
word.
still bump it.
Dude, that shit is fire.
Like, he
Fire.
just came. He slaughtered him. But that I think that's one of the big things that caused the shift in like what it means to be that what black masculinity means is like it's not so much that Drake got his black card that day. It's just that like you have this dude who's constantly being clowned for everything that he does, what he likes, how he presents himself, carries himself.
Right.
At the end of the day, after this battle, he comes out the victor. He was a stronger one in this battle.
Right.
And I think that showed people in their heads that like, listen, you can be a helpless romantic, sing and buy flowers and cook dinners for people and all that stuff and still be a man.
Right. So like I agree with that. I absolutely do. And also maybe this might be a topic for a different conversation, but I also feel like on the flip side to it, right? There seems to be this push, and this is a completely different topic. That I just will kind of like allude to it or foreshadow to it. Where I feel like there's also like a complete different push. Although I am for the the benefit of everyone, being masculine, in their own way, and I agree with that. Masculinity, especially black masculinity, does not have to be this rigid thing, right? It could be in all like in a lot of different shapes and forms, right? But I'm noticing like there's also like this effect where I feel like if you do anything that's like considered to be masculine, there's this quote or tag that they put on you that's like, oh, you're toxically masculine or you're hyper masculine, and we can't have that. You gotta chill. You got, I feel like in this constantly like emasculating men, and so I don't know. I guess for me, like masculinity is just kind of like this. It's like a scale, right? It's like it's this constant shift, right? Because you can't really point to it because it's constantly changing. And what people think about it is constantly changing, and how we try to adapt to what we believe is masculine. It's also constantly changing and tipping, and, tipping and rising and falling. And especially when you add race to that, it's like, oh shit, like okay, like now we got this thing. So like I love when you said in the beginning, like now you're not even thinking about like being a certain type of masculine. You're just living your life and just being who you are. And I like
Exactly.
that. But I feel
I
like we need to be more embracing of like all like a wider aspect of what it is to be masculine. I'm not saying there's no such thing as toxic masculinity, but we need to cast the net open and wider for like what it is to be masculine, especially even being black and masculine.
and I got a perfect example of how I really learned to shape my mind around my masculinity versus a toxic masculinity mindset. So when I got married, I also became a stepfather.
Yeah.
Stepfather to a little girl. I'm I'm a big guy by normal standards. I'm a
Yeah.
big guy.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm definitely not about to put my hands on this girl. I'm not about to. You're not getting no spanks. I'm not about to beat you with the belt. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not doing that. My ex wife, she said that right out the gate. Like, yo, I know it's about to be your girl and all, but like, don't put your hands on her. I'm like, yo, too easy. I'm not down for that.
Right.
I didn't like getting spankings when I was a kid. I think there's better ways to do it. It's very hard. It's very damn difficult. It requires a lot of patience. Oh my God! But I learned that to me, being a father, a present father, is the most masculine shit you can do. I don't see anyone being more manly than a dude that takes care of his kids. That's my view of masculinity. And having
Agree.
to be able to soften to connect with your daughter, connect with your child, that that put a lot of the I have to be hardcore, I have to be tough, I have to be this and that. I put a lot of that stuff to bed because like at the end of
Right.
the day, like I don't really care what you got to say about what I do, how I do what I do. I take care of my kids. I make sure
Right.
I take care of my wife.
Right. And that's crazy because that ties in beautifully with like our quote by Malcolm X talking about what it is to be a man, at least from his perspective, is like taking care of your responsibilities, taking care of your family, taking care of your kids, making sure your wife is taken care of, and making sure all of your responsibilities are met. And,
Oh yeah.
to him, it's like, that's kind of what establishes and defines a man. And I agree with that. I feel like that is a masculine thing. As much as we're gonna have, this pushback from, the female, the feminist community, I feel like there are still some quintessential things that make you masculine, at least from my perspective. And like I said, there's a wider net that make you masculine, taking care of your family and taking care of your kids and your wife and all that. I feel like that's kind of how I see masculinity now too. Honestly, like, you know,
Yeah, I think once you, and I'm not saying you have to have kids to be an ultimate form of masculine that you strive to be, or that if you don't have kids and like you're soft or anything by any stretch of the word. I'm just saying that allowed me to understand how to approach the world from a totally different way of dealing with people, dealing with problems.
right.
Because when you have a small child, they don't have full understanding of whatever situation is currently going on. You know what I'm saying? It's
Mm.
bath time and they cry. But it's like, you got to take a bath. They don't have the reasoning behind, I have to stop what I'm doing right now and take a bath. You got to be able to talk to them. You got to be able to sit down and have the patience to deal with them. But
Mm.
that allowed me to exercise a form of masculinity that I didn't really get to have growing up. My dad, my dad's old school. You know my dad, boy,
Yeah,
old
that
school.
old school is hell, bro.
My dad always been huge, bearded, tatted. He
Right,
don't play. When we was kids, it's like, hey, you finna do this. He didn't
right.
have to yell as much, but like when he did,
He's
it was
scary.
like,
He's scary looking. Like, yeah.
right, yeah, I'm doing right, Roger, I got you. All right. But as I go back into the dating world now, I have that in my back pocket of y'all might be looking for a certain type of thing. I just don't have that, and it's no longer me getting upset that no one's trying to buy what I'm selling. It's like it's just I'm sitting on gold right now.
Right.
I know what I got. I'm cultivating what I've got, and every day I'm getting better. And if you want to miss out because you don't want to open your eyes to a possibility that someone doesn't have to be exactly how you think they should be, then
Hmm.
that's your loss and not mine.
I agree with that, man, wholeheartedly.
And
So I
that's
guess like
why,
go ahead.
well, that's why I'm not dating no more. I'm done, just like
Nigga,
that.
what? All
Now I
right,
ain't
that's gonna
dating no
be a
more.
different conversation. All right.
I'm out.
That MGTOW movement shit, you on it?
I ain't nah. I'm not. I'm off of MGTOW, bro. I'm off of, and that's the thing. I had a conversation with my homeboy.
Uh-huh.
He's about to be a father. He's from El Salvador. His girl is she's Latino as well. He's about to
Hmm.
be a father. He just got married, and we was talking about what it means to be a man. And so we was talking about this stuff earlier today in the car.
Hmm.
And you know how I was when I got divorced. Stuff. I was MGTOW'd out. I was red pilled out.
Yeah.
I was like, man, we always getting screwed over this, that, and the third, and females do this. But that was such
Yeah.
a that's toxic masculinity right there. That's
Yeah.
a hateful, spiteful view
Yeah.
of women, hateful, spiteful view of the world.
Yeah.
I'm taking
I was
the
just to clarify, we don't think MGTOW people are toxic. We just feel like hating women is
yes,
toxic.
hating women is don't hate anybody like
Facts.
for real.
Because you end up hating
Because
yourself, most
literally
likely.
what I'm doing is MGTOW. I'm about to go my own way.
Right.
I'm cutting off dating. I'm getting back on my personal development stuff. I'm doing my own way.
Hmm.
And if I find someone along my journey that I feel not so much completes me, because I'm not looking for someone to complete me. I'm looking for someone to enhance what I have, and I enhance what
Hmm.
they have. It's two complete packages becoming an even better package.
I
And
agree.
so be it. I'm open. But in the meantime, I'm done seeking. I'm done searching because I've been burning a lot of energy doing this stuff, and I'm just getting frustrated for real, for real.
Honestly though, man, that's like probably like the best way to like be though. Like, first of all, don't nobody want nobody seeking nobody out.
Word,
You
like
know what I mean?
that's thirsty. That's thirsty as
It's like we
hell.
could tell you thirsty. It's like don't nobody want that. It's like the fact that you doing your own thing. That in itself, ironically, will also attract more people in your life. So I definitely agree with that. Um, I guess to kind of like almost wrap things up. Like, what would you say to like women, or I guess men and women, in terms of like, looking through the lens of black masculinity, how we should treat it and how we should, what kind of, how should we like look at black masculinity and how should we treat people, if whether they adhere or do not adhere to our standards of black masculinity. And that goes for, black women, black men, and non-black men and women in general.
Okay. Forget everything you know about black men. No, but for real, it's
We're all mysterious.
every black man is as different as any other man. It's if you identify as a man and you happen to be black, I'm not saying don't discount your race. I'm not saying be colorblind to the world. It's I'm a black man and that is who I am, but that's not what I'm trying to be. It's exactly that Carlton quote. It's who I am, but that's not what I'm trying to be. It's
Right.
if you want to get to know me, the person, then come talk to me, the person.
Right.
I'm gonna behave exactly how I want to behave, and if you subscribe to it, whether you want friendship or want romance, whatever, then all right, cool. I'm open. But if not, then all right, nice to meet you. Hope you have a good day. Stay safe, stay black. Be on my way.
Right.
And for black men specifically, don't get stronghold in acting the way you think you have to act. If Jordans and basketball and sports and stuff is your thing, then that's your thing. Then that's your thing. That's your authentic self. But if it's not, don't feel that you have to conform. Don't feel you have to change to feel black enough. And just as cheesy as it is, man, just be yourself.
Right. No, I agree with that, man. Don't be afraid to explore, but certainly do what makes you feel right. Don't do what you feel like you should be doing. I would agree with that. And I feel like a lot of women who look at black men, like you said, you have to understand people are going to be different. There are certain characteristics that might be shared across the board, but that does not mean that everyone's going to have those same characteristics. And by all means, go with whatever you feel like you want, but make sure that what you're going for is not something that's just a fetish. And that goes for black men as well. If you're dating or if you're seeking for somebody, make sure you're going with what your heart really wants and it's not just something that you're lusting after right now. Black masculinity is not something that can be categorized as a whole for the entire diaspora of black people, because it's also going to vary based on our environment, our age. And it's time that we stop looking too deeply into, the negatives. When I say the negatives, I mean being that hyper aggressive, oh, you looked at me funny, now I got to punch you in the face. That's what being masculine is. I feel like we are going away from that, and we should start to go away from that as well. But yeah, I think that's kind of what I would conclude with. Not the most thoughtful, but in my opinion.
That's something I've learned, man. Like, you think that like these very broad, almost philosophical topics, they have to have a very convoluted summation, but really it's like the most generic things that like end up making the most sense. It's just be yourself, be open to new experiences, and don't judge a book by its cover.
Facts. Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's what we got for today. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. I appreciate y'all for listening. As always, we'll see y'all back next week on Mentality. I Drew. I'm gonna holla at you later, bro. Peace out.
All right, boss. Peace out, world.